My name is Clara Hensley. I'm 29. There's a peculiar geometry to lives you think are built on solid foundations. The way routines act like bricks, how familiar footsteps become a kind of furniture. For 2 years, I lived inside that shape, a steady job in international finance, a compact Manhattan apartment with light in the morning, and a boyfriend who liked to call me by the nickname only he used. Small certainties, comfort, the kind of life that hums along until one ordinary sentence rearranges the whole room. We met on a rooftop in Brooklyn, 2 drinks and a laugh, and someone else's playlist folding into the background. Ethan smiled like someone who knew how to listen, like he'd learned the art of making a person feel chosen. Charming, practical, the sort of partner people assume will be part of your life's furniture. He worked in marketing at a startup. He loved brunches and terrible little playlists and pretending he didn't care about certain things he very much cared about. He had an ex, Maya, who worked on the same team. They dated for 3 years, broken up before I met him, and, in a city of millions, ended up professional neighbors again. He assured me it was ancient history. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. At first, the travel was small and ordinary. A 2-day pitch, a late-night email, the occasional photo from a hotel rooftop. But pieces of information are like cracks in a window. You can ignore them until they begin to spiderweb. Trips lengthened. Texts thinned. A FaceTime call that cut out once became 2, then 3. Little things that could have been nothing stacked into a pattern of not quite rights. An unread message he swore he'd answered. A canceled weekend that became work. I gave him the benefit of the doubt. We both had careers that demanded inconvenient hours, until the doubt stopped feeling charitable and started feeling like self-preservation. The night that changed everything was bizarre, not because of fireworks, but because of how ordinary the setting was. We were at our favorite Italian place in the West Village, the kind of restaurant that knows your usual and never judges if you order too much bread. I had been offered a promotion that would move my whole life, Dubai, a 40% raise, a vice presidential title, a chance to run big regional accounts. It was the kind of opportunity you measure in life charts and nights without sleep, the kind you take because sometimes the right door is inconvenient. I'd been leaning towards saying yes for weeks, and meant to talk to him about logistics and support and how 2 ambitious people build a life that might include 2 different skylines. I took a breath, fork paused above the plate, and said, "Ethan, I need to talk about Dubai." He cut across me before the pasta twirled. "Clara, I already told you I can't move," he said, too quick. "My career is finally taking off here." It was a deflection, practiced. "I know," I said, "which is why this is complicated. It's 40%. I'd be a fool not to consider it. I'm asking if we can talk about what support looks like. Maybe transfers, maybe a plan, not a demand." His laugh landed wrong. "Very noble," he said, with a humor that felt like a shield. "But I'm going to need a partner who supports my ambitions too. Not everything is about money, Clara." The conversation should have been a negotiation. Instead, it folded into an accusation. He didn't even hide the edge. "If you can't handle me traveling with Maya for work trips, maybe we're not compatible." The words were light, almost careless, but they were a blade disguised as policy. My first reaction wasn't anger, it was clarity, a crack that revealed something underneath. He'd weaponized a phrase meant to signal security. Trust me. Except it wasn't about trust. It was an ultimatum dressed as maturity. He'd framed my reasonable ask about partnership as an inability to be secure, and he had the audacity to cast himself as the one being vulnerable. For a second, I looked at him like I was seeing him performed on a stage. He expected me to argue. He expected me to cave or rant or cry. Instead, a strange, steady calm settled in me. The kind that comes when you finally stop negotiating with someone who's been negotiating away your needs for months. "Fair enough," I said. Not a surrender, not an insult, just a measurement. If his non-negotiables included sitting beside his ex on flights and prioritizing that over a life we might grow together, then we were standing on different maps. We finished dinner with the brittle civility of people cornered into politeness. He texted later that night with a heart emoji and an "I love you." I read it and felt nothing like the person I used to be with him. The next morning I called my boss. By noon I had the paperwork in progress. Visas, housing, a 2-week window to move. The decision felt less like vengeance and more like an answer. Not because I wanted to hurt him, but because I wanted to act in accordance with my values, not his reframing of them. The weeks that followed were oddly quiet. Ethan called more, then less. He picked up once, breathless with that practiced apology, promising everything would be different. The excuses multiplied, like shadows. I didn't mean it like that. It was just a joke. She matters as a colleague. I listened, and what I heard was not the tuning of a man ready to share the road, but the clumsy shuffle of a man rearranging his life to fit a comfortable narrative. Packing boxes become symbolic in different ways than you think. Tape and cardboard hold tangible things, but they also hold the small daily choices that make a life. Whose toothbrush lives where? Whose name gets written on invitations? Who gets Sundays? I taped another box, not because I needed distance from the apartment, but because I needed distance from the version of myself that would accept an ultimatum masked as trust. He showed up one afternoon while I was taping lids closed, breathless as if he'd run here. He took in the suitcases, the labeled boxes, the business class tickets splayed on the table. "What's this?" he said, voice raw. "I'm moving," I said, "to Dubai." For a microsecond, he looked like something unmoored. "You accepted?" he said, not a question, but a plea. "I did," I said. The words made the room rearrange themselves. He tried the old tactics: humor, charm, sudden contrition. At one point, he reached for me, as if proximity could reset everything. I pulled away like someone stepping from a ledge. There is a ridiculous cruelty to the way people plead once they realize the ground is no longer under the person they've been taking for granted. Calls came in, dozens, then dozens more. Messages bled into essays. "I love you. We can work this out." I made a mistake. He insisted, once, in a voice that sounded small and dangerous, that there had been a one-time thing in Austin. My hand stopped mid-tape. Lies have a particular timbre. They sound like rehearsed desperation. I said two things: "Get out," and later, when the door closed, "Goodbye." He left. I kept packing. There's an odd economy to finality. It is not as clean as you expect. It does not absolve. But there is a small, exact relief in deciding you will not make yourself smaller for the comfort of someone else. Sometimes the bravest thing you do is choose a direction that honors your future rather than the person who wants to keep you in place. Outside, the city moved on, oblivious and perfect. Inside, I taped the last box with hands that were steadier than I felt. The move wasn't a triumph so much as a reclamation of time, of ambition, of the right to set my own non-negotiables. There's a strange quiet that comes after you've made the biggest decision of your life. Not relief exactly, more like the silence in a theater after the curtain falls, when the actors are gone, but the air still remembers every word. 2 weeks later, I was living inside that silence. The Dubai offer was signed. My departure date was set. My friends called it brave. I called it necessary. Ethan still texted, alternating between guilt and romance like a man spinning a roulette wheel, hoping one emotion would land me back in his orbit. I didn't block him. Not yet. I wanted the evidence of his contradictions, a gallery of everything I used to rationalize away. The confession came on a Wednesday night, the kind of evening when the city hummed like static and I was halfway through another cardboard box, wrapping the life we'd built into neat, labeled packages. He knocked, 3 short, uneven taps. When I opened the door, he looked hollow, like someone who hadn't slept or had been rehearsing an apology he didn't know how to finish. "Can I come in?" he asked. I didn't answer, but I stepped aside. He stood in the middle of the living room, the same space where we'd once argued about whose turn it was to do laundry, the same couch where he'd told me I was his piece. Now he just looked lost, surrounded by evidence of his own absence. "Clara," he started, voice cracking, "I need to explain what happened." I crossed my arms. "Then explain." He hesitated. "Maya and I, it wasn't planned. We were traveling, one of those long nights after the pitch. We'd been drinking. It just happened," I finished for him. He swallowed. "Yes, but it didn't mean anything." There it was, the oldest lie in the book. Betrayal without meaning, as if intent could clean the wound. I could feel my heart beat, but my voice was steady. "You mean it didn't mean anything to you?" He ran a hand through his hair, desperate. "I didn't want to hurt you, I swear." "Ethan," I said quietly, "you didn't just hurt me. You dismantled me. You made me question my instincts, my judgment, every time I felt something was off. And then you called it insecurity." His eyes flickered. Guilt, denial, shame, all crashing into one another. I thought we were solid, he whispered. You're everything I ever wanted. Then you should have treated me like it, I said. But you didn't. You treated me like an audience, clapping for your progress while you rehearsed honesty elsewhere. He stepped closer. I can fix this. We can start over. I shook my head. I already started over. He blinked. What do you mean? I gestured toward the half-packed boxes. Dubai. He froze. You're still going? I'm leaving next week. Clara, don't do this because of me. A faint, humorless smile crossed my lips. You really think you're the reason? You're the excuse I stopped needing. He exhaled shakily, then tried one last line, the kind that used to melt me. I love you. I met his eyes. You love having someone who believes you. Silence. Just the soft tick of the wall clock. When he realized I wasn't going to cry, he broke. He mumbled something about mistakes and walked out, slower than he'd arrived, like gravity was working harder on him now. The door clicked shut, and for a long time I stood in that room. The same air, same furniture, but it already felt like a place I'd once visited. The next morning, I booked my flight, one way. Then I opened my messages, scrolled to the top of our chat, and read the first good morning he ever sent me. It felt like archaeology, brushing dust off an artifact that had lost its meaning. I deleted the conversation, not out of anger, out of mercy, for both of us. The morning I left New York, the city looked like a bruise. Purple clouds pressed low, streaks of orange breaking through. It felt right, beautiful in a way that hurt a little. I arrived at JFK hours early, partly to avoid traffic, mostly to avoid the chance of running into him. But fate, as usual, enjoys irony. While I was standing in line for check-in, my phone buzzed. Ethan, 47 missed calls. And now, one new message. I know you're leaving today. Please, just 5 minutes. I'm at the terminal. For a moment, I thought about walking away, letting him talk to my voicemail instead of me. But some small, human part of me needed to see what his version of regret looked like. He found me by the glass railing overlooking the tarmac, breathless, eyes rimmed red. He wasn't wearing his usual suit, just a hoodie, jeans, and desperation. Clara, he gasped, don't go like this. I studied him, this man I once built entire futures around. Like what? Like you hate me. I shook my head. I don't hate you, Ethan. Hate is just love's last performance. I stopped showing up. He took a step closer, lowering his voice. You can't just throw away everything we had. I'm not throwing it away, I said softly. I'm setting it down. It's too heavy to carry where I'm going. He laughed bitterly. Dubai won't fix this. Dubai isn't supposed to fix anything. It's where I stop breaking myself for someone who won't meet me halfway. He flinched. I made one mistake. No, I said. You made a pattern, and I kept pretending it was an accident. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The loudspeaker announced a boarding call for Emirates Flight 204, my flight. He reached for my hand. I didn't pull away, but I didn't hold on either. Clara, please, I'll quit my job. I'll do whatever it takes. I smiled. A small, tired curve. Then why didn't you do whatever it takes before I booked a one-way ticket? Tears welled in his eyes. Because I didn't think you'd actually go. That's the problem, I whispered. You never thought I would. Later, sitting in this Emirates lounge, I watched planes lift off. Silver wings cutting through the sky like second chances. My drink came. Whiskey, neat. The glass caught the morning light like amber honesty. My phone rang again. I answered this time. Ethan. He sounded wrecked. Just tell me one thing. Was any of it real? I looked out at the runway, sunlight flashing over metal, the reflection bright enough to sting. All of it was real, I said, until it wasn't. He started to speak, but I ended the call before he could. Then I blocked his number, everywhere. I posted a photo to my story, my boarding pass beside that same glass of whiskey. Caption: New coordinates. No names, no drama, just truth. There's a strange peace that comes when you wake up in a place where no one knows your history. Dubai was loud in all the right ways. Cranes humming above the skyline, waves breaking against glass towers, the call to prayer echoing faintly through the morning heat. For the first time in years, my silence belonged only to me. I moved into an apartment that overlooked the marina, white floors, wide windows, and a view that made the city look like it was still under construction, just like me. The first few weeks passed in fragments, long workdays, humid evenings, and the quiet discipline of someone rebuilding muscle after heartbreak. I didn't post much. I didn't check who had viewed my stories. I was learning how to exist without needing to be witnessed. 3 weeks in, I got a message from Sarah, an old friend from New York. Clara, I know you don't want to hear this, but Ethan's a mess. He quit his job. Maya, too. Apparently things got complicated. I almost laughed. Complicated. The euphemism people use when consequences finally arrive. They're not together, by the way, Sarah added. It all blew up. He thought she'd leave her boyfriend. She didn't. I read it twice. Then I closed the message, not because it hurt, but because it didn't. There was no satisfaction, no revenge high, just stillness. Voiceover, Clara. We think closure comes when they suffer, but real closure happens when you don't need the update. A few days later, I got another message, this time from an unknown number. The preview line read, "Hi Clara, it's Maya." I stared at it for a while before opening. I know I have no right to reach out. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. You didn't deserve what happened. I was selfish. I was stupid. I hope Dubai has been good to you. The old version of me, the one who needed explanations, who wanted to dissect apologies until they felt like justice, she almost typed a reply. But instead, I just read it one last time and hit delete. Work was thriving. My boss, a blunt Brit named Allison, called me into her office one afternoon. Clara, the board's impressed. You've got a shot at leading regional operations if you keep this up. I smiled. Thank you. Not a compliment, she said with a smirk. A warning. Don't burn out trying to prove something that's already obvious. That night, I walked along the marina. The air smelled of salt and new beginnings. Boats glided by, lights flickering across the water. I thought about what Allison said. Don't prove what's already obvious. And for the first time, I realized she wasn't talking about work. The next morning, I opened my journal, something I hadn't touched in months. On the first page, I wrote, I didn't move here to start over. I moved here to stop waiting for someone to hand me permission.